Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with another episode of the Yakking Show. This is the show that brings you a greater range of actionable tips and ideas for your business than you will find practically anywhere else on the internet in one place. First, let's welcome co host Kathleen Beauvais from down the road from me in Waterloo, Ontario. Hi, Kathleen. Take it away.
Thanks, Peter. And thank you also very much for tuning into our show. We're very excited to have another special guest with us today. Her name is Nickie Cobble. Hello, Nickie. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kathleen. Thanks for having me on. And you, Peter.
Now, Nickie is the founder and COO of OutsourceAid. This is a company that helps businesses and entrepreneurs scale their businesses by showing them what they can outsource. Today, she'll be talking about how you can scale your business by outsourcing tasks you currently do on your own. I can't wait to delve into this topic because this has been an area of interest to our audience. But first, before we delve into the topic, Nickie, give us a little bit about your background and what made you choose to delve into the outsourcing world.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you for the introduction, Kathleen. Basically, what got me into the realm of outsourcing and really being an expert in delegation is, though I'm quite young, I graduated at 20 and quickly became an ISO, so an independent sales organization for a processor, which is a very passive business. And I wanted to make it even more passive so I could start different ventures if I wanted to. And that led me to hiring my own virtual assistant. I recruited mine from the Philippines, and within a month, I really was working about 2 hours a week max, maybe, on a job that was originally taking me 8 hours a day. People caught on, people wanted what I was doing, and that's when I realized, wow, there really is a niche. There's a need for people who want to make their jobs more passive, or maybe start selling more by doing more of what they love and less of stuff they don't love, like emails. So that's really what opened my mind to outsourcing and why I started OutsourcEad.
Very good. Very good. So, particularly now when there's fears of recession and inflation and everything else, many businesses are cutting costs and laying people off. And I believe that many conventional businesses, perhaps more so than online businesses, they're nervous about taking on more full-time employees, but when you talk about part-time, if they're my generation, they think of Kelly Girl and all those other part-time things where you still have quite a big commitment of so many days or weeks at a time, which is totally different to what you're talking about. So, how do you get these type of businesses to get over that old style thinking and adopt the idea of virtual employees, perhaps in other countries?
You're right. There definitely is still a mental barrier. And I don't want to promote COVID at all, but thanks to COVID, people really are opening their mind up to
Sure.
remote work. I mean, you're not seeing your employees anyway. And so there really is no difference whether or not they're 2 miles down the road or in the Philippines, which I exclusively recruit from. Now, to kind of help people get over the mental barrier, we do have kind of packages. It's set up to where you can dip your toe in. Start with 5 hours a week. That's 1 hour a day. Just delegate one task. And then quickly, I did that with most clients. I have one, she does the payroll for 14 Sonics, so 14 fast food chains, restaurants. And quickly within, I think, 1 or 2 weeks, they're like, okay, we need her for 20 hours a week. So they really see the value quite quickly. So dip your toe in, give them a task, see the value, find out how you communicate best with them, and then increase the hours accordingly.
Right. So what is your typical client look like? What tasks do they usually need help with?
So that's very well phrased. What tasks do they need help with? Because I have a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs who kind of go with what they feel like they want to do. Like, if they're making less than 6 figures, they're kind of new. Oh, they hate Facebook. They don't like Instagram. I'm going to get a VA and I'm just going to have them do social media. That's not always helpful, and that does not lead to quick results. Social media is slow, it's organic. So I wouldn't always recommend that unless that's very pivotal to your business, like you're a marketing agency or something. but really you will find the best use in, auditing your own time and going, wow, I spend 3 hours a day on email. So having someone managing your email is huge. Or doing data entry, or if you have multiple employees, like a restaurant or a retail shop, handling their payroll like Sonic is doing, a big 14 Sonic chains. She's editing their when they go over their hours. I can't even remember the word at the moment, but definitely just everyone's different. My suggestion is time audit yourself, see where you're spending the most time, and start with that.
Okay.
Okay. So that I was going to ask you at what level most businesses start. So are most of your clients entrepreneurs and online, or you've just mentioned the restaurant, or do you have a lot of brick and mortar businesses as well?
Most of them actually are brick and mortar
Are they?
businesses. Shockingly,
Okay.
so it's almost made for businesses or business owners that are into e-commerce or Shopify or Amazon distribution. I forget what that's. Oh, drop shipping is the term.
Drop shipping, yeah.
Really, I've been specializing in small businesses, business owners like your mom and pop down the street, where they need to be focusing on being in the business or maybe making sales calls, and they want to delegate the stuff they don't like doing. Like, for example, bookkeeping's another one, or even if you're a stay-at-home mom, having them book your trips, having them buy your groceries when you don't want to, having them organize your schedule or plan events. I mean, there's endless opportunities with businesses.
Oh, it sounds like it. So let me jump in quick. Another mental barrier that I know, speaking to people, a lot of people, is their only experience of virtual workers in foreign countries, and it's not only Philippines, India comes to mind, is being called by call centers or getting a call center response when they're trying to sort out a problem with their telephone account. We find in Canada that's a particular one that irks us, or sometimes banks as well outsource. So is that a negative that you have to sort of get around, or does that not come up too much, the experience of people with call centers?
No, it's the first thing that kind of does come up is, do they have an accent, or they're really worried. And it's not so much discrimination, it's more so, like you said, we're used to being on the phone with them for 4 hours, and it's a terrible experience. That is why I don't do India, because they do have accents and they're more so for developing and software and coding. Whereas Philippines, they're a very westernized culture. Their native language for the most part is English. There's very minimal communication barrier. And if it is going to be a position where they're taking support calls or customer calls or sales calls, I will provide a sample of their voice just so they can approve it. So it is something that needs to be overcome, but it is definitely something that we address openly.
Right. Okay.
So do you
Kathleen,
think that advances in automations and AI, for example, you have programs like Airtable and Asana will reduce the demand for virtual assistants?
That you can look at it in two ways. That's a fantastic question. On my end, with my most recent two clients, it's actually what made them want a virtual assistant. So they're getting these softwares and they don't necessarily want to go through the learning curve, or they still don't want to handle it. Right. So for example, their email marketing CRM or an Airtable or their Asana. So it's actually bridging the gap between the remote work as well. So it encourages teamwork and encourages remote work, and then the the virtual assistant gets to manage it, whereas the business owner doesn't have to be in it as much.
Yeah, I can see that. We've recently started using Airtable quite extensively for our own automations, and it saves a huge amount of time. And I'm lucky; I'm quite interested in that sort of thing and developing that. But if I wasn't, we would probably have had to look for someone outside to set it up for us, for sure. So we had an experience with someone from the Philippines that we needed some transcripts done for some of our shows, and we used a service over there, a young woman, and wow, their service was good, their costs were low, so we were very impressed with service we got there. That was a good one. What about training for entry or business specific tasks? Do you work with the employer, the business owner, to get that training done right up front?
Yeah, so a little bit. I'll say that, we have our introduction call. I have them kind of give me their time audit, where's their time being spent, what are they looking for? And then I recruit specifically someone that has, X level of years in that industry and that experience. So I go out and I source someone already with that experience. And then I'd say with the first 2 weeks, I do help with onboarding and training. And, it does take some hand holding to teach them how to best communicate with them. And then I kind of do leave ongoing training on the business owner. But, I do give them the tools. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Loom, but Loom is a great tool for helping with training because it will screen record your computer screen and you get to walk through the process while you're doing it. So I do help them to train, but really it's once I make the placement, it is then their employee and they kind of take it from there.
Okay.
That's it. That's interesting. So if a business had a very specific program that they were working with, such as a payroll type of program, such as QuickBooks or Airtable that we were just talking about, or Asana, do you find the people that actually have the experience in those specific programs?
Yes, ma'am.
And the Philippines has a rich pool of talent, I guess, that for people that have these types of experiences, I take it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'd be surprised because that is the most desirable job in the Philippines, is being a virtual assistant. They like staying home. They like working remotely. It does pay better. And, we're paying some people as low as $4 an hour, but that is so much to them over there. So that is what they desire. So they go through courses and training and with all different softwares just so they can be more effective to clients in the United States.
Oh, fantastic. So if I were to contact you, Nickie, as a client, and can you walk me through the process you would take with me, just to get the initial steps rolling?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would, come to my website, which is youroutsourceaid.com, or, email, contact, LinkedIn, whatever. And my first thing I would do is, like I've been saying, is ask for you to, at least for a day, an afternoon, do a self-time audit, as loosely as it is. Set an alarm on your phone for every 3 hours, jot down what you just did. Because I'd love to get, a day in your shoes to see where you're spending your time. And so, most business owners don't even know. And then I would ask, for a virtual talk. We would go through what you need. I would begin sourcing and screening their candidates for them. This can take from 3 days to 2 weeks. And even if they want to interview the top candidates, I'll allow them to interview them too. Most don't interview. So I'll just give them their virtual assistant, handhold them on the first week, training, introductions, and then really it's their virtual assistant, it's their employee, and off to the races. But I will say, because no one likes to kind of pay overseas, so the client will pay me and then I would pay the virtual assistant on their behalf.
Right.
But that's it on a high level.
Yeah. So I've just picked up on something you said. You say most business owners don't know where they spend their time.
Yeah, most don't. Well, they have an idea, but the idea is almost a narrative, like, oh, I spend, 4 hours of my day doing sales, which is such a broad term, but really, they'll see, oh, wow, I spent X amount of time on email and on my phone and at the water cooler, for example. So I just think all business owners do get a little bit of a shock when they kind of track their time more. I will say that.
Well, I must be the exception, because I track every day like a lawyer to the 5 minutes. To the 5 minutes what I'm spending my time on. I read a really good article that says just work on $100 an hour as a level of income. Every minute you waste is $1.66, right? And that's stuck in my mind. So I do that. What about the legal angle, Nickie? because a friend of mine did something similar to yours, and then they had a client who didn't want to pay and poached the overseas employee away, and it got quite ugly. Does your contract protect you from that sort of thing well enough, or do you end up with some odd situations?
Yeah, so we've run into no issues so far with any
Good.
client.
Good.
And we did have a lawyer write up contracts, and I'm not going, people get scared of the word contract. It's not so I can, you sign this contract and you have to keep your virtual assistant for X
Sure.
amount of time. It's really the virtual assistant signs it, the business owner signs it, and it's to protect both people. And that, let's say you give them confidential information like credit card or login credentials, whatever, it is to protect that business owner, that the fault is on that virtual assistant, and vice versa. If you're the client and you had them working 10 hours a week and you decided, oh, I didn't love the work, you still have to pay them for the time spent. So it's just to protect both parties.
Right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And then I think I did some contract writing, content creation some years back for a company, and just to put our audience's minds at rest, there's a lot of tools to help with that security. For instance, so if you're giving somebody a password to get into a certain website, you can restrict it and you can turn it off very easily, right? So there's a high level of security with that sort of thing.
And you don't need a separate company entity in the Philippines in order to do what you're doing, though, right? You can simply, as an American, you're an American company, and you just simply outsource. So you don't have to have basically a company set up in the Philippines in order to operate.
That is correct. Yes. Okay. US based business.
Yeah.
But we're recruiting from the Philippines. But yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, great.
That's good to know. So I guess you said the Philippines has got a very Western style culture. So probably you can find people with experience and who would be competent in most industries. I know that there's some agricultural service industries in Canada, probably more so in the States, that look to using to outsourcing some of their work. So I don't think Philippines has large scale agriculture like we do in North America. Is that an area that you could accommodate or not?
Yeah, it more so depends on the actual task itself more than the industry. So within every industry, there are similar tasks. But really, it just does take, depending on the complexity, just are they trainable? Can they learn a system? Can they go through a week of training or a month of training and pick up the task? What I will say, top industries tend to be, marketing, real estate, health insurance. A lot of assistants tend to have a background in.
Sure. But for instance, if you wanted someone to run a CRM, whether your customers are farmers or not, the principles are much the same, right? So that would be a relatively straightforward one. If you wanted someone to accumulate data on ploughing practices for prairie grain farmers, that might be a bit of a problem. So, yeah, okay, no, that's good. So where does your industry go from here? I think I know the answer to that, but I'd like to hear it from you. What do you see going down, looking ahead 5 years? What do you see not just your business, but the outsourcing virtual assistant in remote work industry?
So I guess fortunately and unfortunately, it's really becoming immensely popular very, very quickly. So, I mean, I truly hope that prices don't rise too much. As it becomes more saturated, everyone just increases their prices, and they can't really be decreased. They're so low already. But really, I think to differentiate is just specialization. So instead of me saying, you tell me what you want, and I am just going to find you whoever you need, I want to be the one being known for specialized virtual assistants. I want to be the one training them, so people come to OutsourcEad for the best marketing VA or the best copyright VA. And that is down the road. And I think that's what each company will have to do, is just specializing and niching.
No, that certainly makes sense. Yeah.
And when you're working with companies outside the US, do they have to, they pay you, I take it, still in US dollars or in their own currency?
I use a platform called Remitly. I'm not sure if that's popular, but it can switch currencies so that there's no fees incurred on either side.
Okay.
Well,
And that's how I
good.
would pay the virtual assistants as well.
Yeah. So, Nickie, what about time zones? Because Philippines is what, about 10 hours ahead of us?
13 ahead of
13.
Central. Yeah, yeah. I love
So
that
how do you
question.
get around that one?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you get around that?
Fortunately, again, I cater everything to exactly what a business owner needs. So if I mean, I'm in Florida in the United States, most of us are in Central Standard Time. So if they need you work in Central Standard Time, that is a part of the vetting process. Are you willing to work Central Standard Time? Yes or no? About 99% of VAs will say yes. They have no issues working during the graveyard shift, is what they call it, because it's so common for them.
Right. But I would guess for some tasks, some industry, it doesn't matter. They can work whatever as long as they put in the contracted hours per day and get through the tasks. Sure. Here's what I'm going on a little bit of a different topic, but I'm going to ask you this question because you've been very successful yourself and you've been dealing with lots of different types of businesses. So, in your experience, Nickie, with all the people that you've come across and businesses particularly, is there one habit or mindset characteristic that sets the successful people apart from those that remain average? I don't mean just about accumulating wealth or making a lot of money. I mean having a good life, balanced life. But there's obviously differences. So is there one thing or is it more complicated?
I mean, I had like 3 or 4 things instantly come to my mind that I've been trying to implement because I consume books on what successful people do, successful and wealthy. So instantly what comes to mind is, reading, journaling, meditation, stuff. Who you surround yourself with is even a habit. What you absorb, what you consume, that is who you are. It's your habits. But really, I think the most important that I've been implementing so far and that I've seen is really visualizing. And I mean manifesting, and whether that's written's more powerful, but in your mind, I really think if you can see yourself 3 or 5 years from now as specifically as possible, with X amount in your bank account or with X weight on the scale or whatever your dream is, I think you really have to see it and manifest it every day.
Very interesting. Thank you for that.
Great.
So just to feedback for you, and our audience would have heard what I'm about to say as well, but if they've listened to other episodes, we ask that question of most of our guests, and nobody says go and get an MBA or get a good university education or even get a good job. Right? Everyone is in these sort of soft skills, and constant learning, reading is right at the top of most of those. So, yeah, thank you for your contribution there.
Absolutely.
So we have a couple of minutes, Nickie. One gem of a tip for our business audience that you could give them that would help them improve their businesses tomorrow. What would you suggest?
Oh gosh, implementing it tomorrow. Again, the baby habits, really starting small. So if now I'm biased, so I love the idea of delegating and outsourcing, but baby step, do it tomorrow. Every 3 hours, set an alarm on your phone and just really track your time, or every 2 hours, whatever. Like you've been doing every 5 minutes. I mean, that's so impressive. I can't even believe it. But know what you're doing in the day to day. Know what stuff is actually driving results for you, and know what stuff is $10 an hour work that you shouldn't be doing. And then make a plan to start delegating it, because you will never scale. You'll never grow. You'll be your own bottleneck if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is my action tomorrow. Start understanding what you do every minute of the day.
I said 5 minutes. What I do is every time I start a task, I set my little timer, which costs about, I got it at the dollar store, right? And it's been going for years with the same battery. So I set the timer. And when I finish that task, I write the time down. If I get interrupted, I stop it and start again. So I track to the nearest 5 minutes, but I don't look at every 5 minutes what I'm doing, just to get that straight. I'm not quite that obsessive. But
okay, Peter's not crazy, everyone. It's
no, it does. But honestly, just as Nickie's saying, it makes a huge difference when you look at how you spend your 8 or 10 hours a day when you're supposed to be working. Nickie, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
That was
Back
wonderful,
to Kathleen.
Nickie. So please tell us, how do people contact you?
Yeah, so my website is youroutsourceaid.com. which will have all the contact information and everything needed. And all my socials, my Instagram, LinkedIn is just my name, which is Nickie, Nickie, Cobble, Cobble. Nickie is spelled weird, I get it, but I'm sure it'll be in their show notes and everything.
Oh yeah, everything will be in there. Thank you, Nickie. And before Kathleen ends off, just a quick note to our audience that if you've enjoyed this show, which I'm sure you would have done, don't miss out on next lot of exciting guests that are coming up. Visit our website, theyakkingshow.com, and sign up for our newsletter. And then every week we tell you who's coming on board and who's been on board. So back to Kathleen.
Well, thank you all so very much. Nickie, thank you for being on the show today. We so appreciated having you. And we so appreciate your comments. So please keep those coming. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, please visit us at theyakkingshow.com. And all you need to do is click on the contacts tab where you will find a short application form. And also let us know what topics you'd like us to cover. We have access to many experts on this show, and we'd love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.